Welcome back to Root Double. And when we last left off, yeah, we found out the identity of the inside man. And of course, it's this fucker. Now to recap from last video, I have a feeling my suspicions are that there's some subtle manipulation going on here. This is stuff that they did, though. I feel like there's that motif of a floral scent.
Yeah, 正しいさ。人を殺してしまったら、俺たちもラボの連中と同じ人間のクズに落ちちまうからな。ああ、そうだな。
Natsuhiko shuddered when he heard their conversation. Did they just say that there's a powerful time bomb that can blow LABO sky high? That they planted the thing in LABO? It was set to go off 1 minute after the lockdown ended. Watase, Mr. Ukita, what have you done? On the other hand, there was something else that was really bugging him. But something's weird. Watase said he wanted to avoid casualties. Like Mr. Ukita said, that's a rather naive idea for a terrorist. Was he thinking that though communicators were monsters, he didn't want to kill any humans if possible? Are communicators and humans totally different species in Watase's mind? It was indeed somewhat strange, but Natsuhiko continued to read through Watase's memories. That is a viable interpretation. I'm going to subscribe to that. And thus their plan approached its final stages. It was then that Q sent their third set of orders. Run easy about only 2 people carrying out the plan. We would prefer if you could get about 2 more people for the job. We'd like you to invite Mr. Seiji Dojima and Mr. Kazuki Hiyama, Comrade Kasasagi's co-workers, to become our comrades. Watase understood what they were getting at. But though he was okay with just himself being a part of it, was it really okay for him to get his co-workers wrapped up in this terrorist plot? Those guys have their same background as me. Dojima lost his girlfriend in the Great Arson, while Hiyama lost his younger brother. So if they learn the truth, they too should hate Rokumi City's barbarism enough to want revenge, just like me. So while he was reluctant at first, Watase eventually contacted Dojima and Hiyama.
で、どうだったんだね、君の同僚たちの反応は。俺と全く同じだったよ。怒りに震え、Qに入ることを承諾した。そうか。ならば必要なピースはこれで全て揃ったな。
And thus Watase and Ukita's plan was now complete. They'd plant incendiary bombs and fire extinguishers and artificially start a fire. Next, they'd cause the WX particle amplifier to go haywire, rescue the test subjects, and cause a case end to be declared. Once the lockdown began, they'd set the time bomb in the facility, then escape through the coolant drainage pipe. Then once the bomb went off, all traces of Watase and Ukita's crimes, as well as any way of finding out if the test subjects were dead or alive, would go up in flame. Okay, Ukita took out his PDA.
Q からの最後の指示がこの端末に送られてきた。なんて同志笠崎、同志浮田、両名の尽力に感謝する。これより我々は決行の際に必要となる爆弾および武器の準備を行う。消火器に偽装した燃焼剤入り爆弾100発、ラボ建屋破壊用爆薬テトリル3キロ、護身用拳銃 NZ75 丁、
NZ75。
テトリルと拳銃はレスキュー隊の特殊装備に混ぜ決行当日に持ち込んでくれ。目標原子力生物学機構第6研究所。目的は建屋の破壊と被験体2名の略取。決行はこれより約1年後、2030年9月16日とする。6名死、同時多発火災が起きた日か。
That day probably held unpleasant memories for Q's members, whoever they were. It's clearly no coincidence that they picked that day of all days to commence their plan.
それまで同志各位は一層の準備を進めること。
This is where Watase starts growing distant from Kasumi and Jun.
格闘技や射撃の訓練などしておくべきことは無数にある。またこれから1年間計画を他者に語ることは無論誰にも心を開いてはいけない。
Yep, that's
6名
where
士は無数のコミュニケーターが住む町だ。誰かに心を許せば心を読まれ計画が露呈してしまうかもしれない。すでに死した被験体 A のみならずコミュニケーターは全て我々とは違う能力を持つ一種の怪物だ。コミュニケーター全てを忌むべき存在だと思え。6名士は怪物だらけの町だと思え。こんな異常な町の歴史は終わらさなければならない。極端な考え方だと思われるかもしれないが警戒に警戒を重ねなければ完璧な計画も瓦解する。
And that's why I'm on Natsuhiko's side and only Natsuhiko's side.
以上に留意し来たるべき日を待ってくれたまえ。
Rokame city governments done some shady shit, and the terrorists don't see communicators as human.
真実を暴き亡き118名の無念を晴らす日。
Once Ukita had finished reading the long piece of text, he shot Watase a pointed gaze.
随分と時代がかった言葉だな。
コミュニケーターは忌むべき存在。
それは言い過ぎだろうが心を開いてはいけないのは確かだ。
ああ、その通りだ。
And so Watase and his comrades began their long year of preparation, all the way until September 2030. Years spent preparing for that terrorist plot passed by in the blink of an eye. Watase showed no indications of what he was doing. He continued work as a rescue worker, as he had before while secretly getting ready for that day. Dojima and Hiyama were the same. They met with Ukita as little as possible and just waited for September 16th. Then something changed on September 13th, 3 days before D-Day. Watase was off duty that day. It would be his final day off as a rescue worker. So he figured he'd spend the day walking around the city. He aimlessly strolled through the city where he'd been born and raised. He'll probably never be able to come back to the city again once the plan's been executed. That thought caused him to become sentimental. Various memories passed through his head every time the scenery around him changed. Memories of the restaurant his parents had taken him to. Memories of the clothing store his sister had bought new clothes for him at. The city's full of places with memories of my family. He probably wasn't conscious of it, but the city was brimming with nostalgia for him. It wasn't just memories of his family that he recalled. It was one of the bars he'd gone bar hopping to with Dojima and Hiyama the night they'd passed the rescue worker exam. There was the cafe where he'd broken up with his first girlfriend. There was the road he'd walked down with his last girlfriend in hand as they nestled close to one another. Watase was trying to cast aside all those memories and take his first step into a different life. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have my reservations. But he still had to do it. He reached that conclusion long ago. So I'm the only one who can avenge Wataru and my folks. As the only survivor of the Kasasagi family, he would be disgracing his family's memory if he were to give up on his revenge before it even started. That's what he told himself. It wasn't long before dark clouds hung overhead. Looks like it's gonna rain. Watase hated getting rained on. He walked over to the nearest bus stop. A bus came by shortly afterwards. He got on to find that it was packed inside. Maybe I should have taken a cab. Watase stood between the other passengers as he thought that, waiting for his thoughts to be interrupted by the sound of students chatting in the seats nearby.
Natsuhiko は買いたいものはないの？
いや、僕は特に。
や
Aha!
はりやないな。あ、そうだ。今度は夏彦も服を買おう。
いいよ別に。
いいじゃん。夏彦は素材は割といいんだから、たまにはおしゃれしないとね。
おいおい、今度は僕を着せ替え人形にするのか？
そういう見方もあるかもね。
The boy smiled wryly at the girl's playfulness. Thoughts crossed Watase's mind as he listened to their conversation. I think I've heard that conversation somewhere before. Yeah. Where was it? Watase thought about it and then remembered.
そうだ、今日はお姉ちゃんがあんたに服を買ってあげよう。
いいよ別に。
いいからいいから、あんた素材はいいんだからちゃんとおしゃれしないと。
それって遠回しに自分を褒めてないか？
そういう見方もあるかもね。
Oh, that's right. This is just like that conversation I had with Watsu back when she was still alive. Man, hearing this sure brings me back. As he started to feel a sense of fellowship with those kids, the girl looked at him. Only then that Watase realized it. The girl was wearing a Rokume Academy uniform. That was the school where they trained communicators. They're communicators. Watase gasped in surprise. Shit, there's a chance a communicator will read my mind if I open my heart to them. If they were students of Rokume Academy, it wouldn't be surprising if they could use empathy. Calm down. Your mind blank. Off chance someone reads your mind, the whole plan's doomed to fail. Members of Q said that communicators are an abomination. We have to put an end to this town's history. Hold on for just a few more days. Don't open your heart to anyone. You have to work under the assumption that this is a city full of monsters. Once he thought that, then closed his mind. Even if him and Ukita didn't fully believe it, by virtue of being around folks who do, that rubs off. Abandon your emotions and focus only on carrying out the plan. Failure will most certainly not be tolerated. Once he made that cold vow and kept to it as the next few days passed. Natsuhiko felt sad when he saw that memory. What to say? Is that what you were thinking when you looked at us? So deep down, are you really just a terrorist who hates communicators? Those unendurable thoughts raged in Natsuhiko's mind as he continued looking through Watase's memories. This is it. Next up are his memories of today. Natsuhiko mentally prepared himself. He swore to accept the truth that lay in stone for him no matter what it was. Then came the day of fate. September 16th, 2030, 6:19 a.m. LABO's Automatic Disaster Prevention System sent a rescue request to Sirius. Accident involving explosions of unknown origin has occurred within the facility. Please dispatch at once. Watase and the others accepted that request and sped off towards LABO. Baba Yaga! Watase addressed his subordinates as they lined up, all of them garbed in the same type of protection suit he was wearing.
よし、全員そのまま聞け。現在このラボの中には無数の人が取り残されている。そして施設の性質上、これは通常の出場では。
Everything was going according to plan. Ukita had caused a commotion by detonating the bombs in the facility, while Watase, Dojima, and Hiyama had successfully invaded LABO without any resistance.
立花は森部と、堂島は檜山とツーマンセルだ。B チームとの連絡を欠かすな。連携を常に取り続けろ。
His four subordinates then rushed into the facility as soon as Watase finished giving out his orders. He then stayed on the surface floor for a little while afterwards, directing rescue efforts to make sure none of the other squad members became an obstacle to the plan. Furthermore, Watase and the others had already administered the AD they'd been supplied with by LABO. Ukita had already told him that it wasn't anti-radiation medicine, but rather an anti-BC protective agent. There was no fear of radiation exposure, but administering themselves with AD would be necessary for their rescue of the communicators. It'd be bad if we didn't prepare ourselves for every little thing that could go wrong. Those test subjects trapped here have the same kind of power as A. There's a chance they could contaminate our minds via BC. Once he thought that over. At 6:34 a.m., he got a radio transmission from Dojima and Hiyama.
Kasasagi, すぐに地下に来てくれ。時間がありません。急いで。
They didn't call Watase captain. It was only natural. They weren't here for work today. Those two were his friends of many years who had all talked to each other as equals without any regards for ranking when they were off the job.
わかった。そこで待ってろ。
This too was all going according to plan. This was scripted. Even if Commander Murakami had intercepted their transmission, he shouldn't have found it suspicious at all. Watase regrouped with Dojima and Hiyama in Area 2. On their way, they were faced with the inconvenience of encountering the students they'd threatened and tied up yesterday. Though how they'd broken free and made it there to begin with was its own question. The kids quickly retreated, leaving the three comrades to press onwards. They then carried the two unconscious, high-ranked researchers with them and headed on over to Area 3, getting into Area 0. Ukita was waiting for them in the surveillance room, oh shit! He'd been observing the situation in the facility from there as he guided the evacuation of the staff through the room's intercom.
おお、ちょうどいいところに来てくれた。さっき地上と有線電話で話し、職員たちが全員避難したことを確認したよ。その
Oh shit. Sorry. By those two, he was of course referred to the high-ranked researchers that Dojima and Hiyama were carrying.
さらに先ほどブレインセルを操作し、WX 粒子増幅器を暴走させた。これでケース N を発生させれば、隔壁は長時間閉まりっぱなしになる。ブレインセルの計算によれば、18時16分までな。
よし、万事予定通りだな。
Rescue workers checked their gear. They stole the security cards they needed to break into Area N from the high-ranked researchers. Watase, Dojima, and Hiyama each had one pistol. Furthermore, they had the jackhammer they planned to use to escape through the pipe and a fire axe as backup. Last, they had the tetral bomb, a time bomb prepared by Q that held enough power to wipe out LABO in one blast.
悪いが、爆破時刻をここでセットしてくれないか。間違いがあったら困る。
いいだろう。18時17分だな。
Watase then took out his PDA. Located in his PDA's data folder was the program to activate the tetral bomb. After he input the password and started up the program, the menu to set the time bomb appeared on the screen.
あとはこれをゼロエリアに仕掛けるだけだ。
Go ahead, make my day.
いよいよ後戻りはできないな。
Watase nodded quietly in response. The program could only activate the bomb. There was no option to deactivate it. The sensor on the bomb would activate starting at 8:17 a.m. to prevent anyone from disarming it. No one would be able to stop it then.
じゃあ俺たちはゼロエリアに降り、被験体を救出してくる。
僕はここに留まり、不測の事態が起きないかどうか見張っておこう。なお、N エリアの WX 粒子は今から20分もすれば4000ミリスカラバリューを超えるはずだ。その数値を超えると AD の効果は消える。時間がないぞ。急い。
ああ。
The three rescue workers left the jackhammer in Ukita's care and rushed out of the surveillance room. They all headed for Area N with Watase carrying the bomb, while Dojima and Hiyama carried the high-ranked researchers. Fixed security gates soon came into view.
この先に例の2人が閉じ込められてるって言うんですか。
そうさ。だから行こう。
Watase told his comrades that in a firm voice. Dojima and Hiyama had also lost loved ones in the Great Arson 16 years ago. They all knew accomplishing the plan wouldn't bring the dead back, but
あの時、俺たちは誰も救えなかった。その贖罪をする時がようやく来たんだよ。
Graving their conviction upon their hearts, the three comrades entered Area N. The Procion's alarm didn't go off as they went in, even as they got in. Probably because the WX particle energy levels weren't strong enough to affect the human body yet. A transparent tube-shaped elevator lay in the center of Area N. They swiped the level N cards into the terminal lying next to it and forced the high-ranked researchers to perform the retinal scan authentication. Then the path to B3's Area 0 would open. We have to hurry before these guys wake up. Three of them approached the elevator and started fiddling with the terminal. The computer voice started playing once they swiped the security cards through the slot.
登録者の網膜を確認します。センサーに目を近づけてください。
They forced the unconscious researcher's eyes open and brought them towards the scanner, just as instructed.
ゼロエリア担当管理官、襟口修也の網膜を確認しました。
There he is.
ゼロエリア担当管理官、
The two names,
条件の網膜を確認しました。
the only two other names we know. With the authentication complete, the three of them boarded the elevator.
エレベーターが降下します。AD の投与が薄みでない場合、直ちに投与してください。
floor shook at the same time that announcement was made, and the elevator started descending. Once they reached the bottom, 3 of them were greeted with the most unexpected sight. There it is.
なんだこれは。
There's the nice scene. Missing scene. Missing place. That we glimpsed in the original opening chapter and the preview for this one.
ラボの地下にこんなものが。
It was a giant underground garden. Lighting that looked no different from the sunshine outside the facility illuminated their surroundings. The ceiling and walls were a blue sky. No, were giant screens that projected images of the sky. Why would they build something like this? No, now's not the time to wonder that. We have to hurry up and rescue the test subjects. As they looked around the underground garden to find 6 rooms built into the walls. First one read Relaxation Room. One next to it read Playroom. Test subjects probably relaxed in those rooms. Inside were 2 unlabeled doors. They appeared to be vacant rooms. As for the 2 remaining doors, one of them read Subject Y2, while the other read Subject N.
Subject Y2 被験体 Y2 か。
Watase, Dojima, and Hyama ran up to the door. There was another security slot next to it. When they slid a level N card into it as a test, the door opened right up. On the other side of the door was another, thicker door. It required another retinal scan, so they forced the researchers to perform the necessary authentication again. The door opened with a heavy sound. Hi, Yuri's
これ
room.
が被験体 Y2 の部屋か。
Ah, so even though there's some semblance of comfort, even though surface level there's some semblance of comfort, that's still heavily ridiculously secured, all for the effort of keeping these kids in. Looked just like a normal girl's room. Bookshelves, a single bed, knitting supplies, and a dresser. Been expecting to find something more along the lines of a prison cell, but it looked like they gave the test subjects fairly decent accommodations. What he could tell, it appeared that subject Y2 was a young girl on the verge of adulthood. The person in question was nowhere to be found.
バカな。誰もいないだって。
He looked around to discover that there was a security slot by the door on the room's side wall. Couldn't imagine that the test subjects were given security cards, so they probably couldn't have escaped on their own.
騙されたのか俺たちは。なぜ誰にまさか内田さんの情報がガセで。
いや待て、そんなわけはない。
Watase looked at the two
異
researchers.
変を察したこいつらがすでに被験体たちを逃がすか隠すかしたんじゃないか。
だとしたらまずいぞ。ここまで来たのが無駄になる。探そう。
Three of them quickly left the room. Even after searching the playroom, relaxation room, and even the vacant room, they still hadn't found neither hide nor hair of the test subject.
これはひょっとして被験体 N も。
They didn't find either the test subject, and the plan would have hit a serious snag. Three of them headed for subject N's room. When they got to the door. Oh shit, hi Yoriguchi.
ここは
Researchers that Dojima and Hyama were carrying woke up. Three of them gasped. Researchers quickly started questioning them.
君たちはなんだ何者だ。レスキュー隊だ。レスキュー隊だと。いや、それよりここはゼロエリアじゃないか。なんだこれは。どうなってる。
Alright, back to sleep
な
with
ぜ
you.
レスキュー隊がこんな最深部まで降りてくるんだ。
Once he resolved himself in an instant after hearing their onslaught of questions. No choice. I didn't want to do this, but... Once he took his concealed pistol out and pointed it at the researchers.
騒ぐな。騒ぐと撃つ。の俺たちはレスキュー隊員であると同時にある組織のメンバーでもある。Q。この名前を聞いてピンとこないか。
Researchers' faces froze when they heard that name.
まさかこの爆弾騒ぎはお前らが起こしたものか。その通りだ。俺たちの目的は被験体を連れ去ることだ。邪魔しなければお前たちに危害は加えない。連れ去るだと。バカな。 中にいるコミュニケーターを外に連れ出そうというのか。
そのまさかだ。お前たちのやってきたことを世間様に知ってもらうためにもな。
やめろ。お前たちは自分が何をしようとしてるか分かってるのか。この中にいるのはただのコミュニケーターなんかじゃない、正真正銘の怪物なんだぞ。
You know you're fucked. You know you hit a hell of a snag when... You know you kinda... When both sides of the awful tree are in agreement about something, then you know something's...
なんだそれは。
some
そんなことを言って俺たちがビビるとでも。
weird glitch in the matrix. Ironically, as I'm stating that, it's what a weird glitch in the matrix when both sides of the spectrum here are in agreement about something. Funny how that's actually happening in reality now with our good pals and Reddit taking on Wall Street, bankrupting hedge funds, making billionaires cry, brah.
悪意を増幅されて。
バカが、俺たちは AD を投与してるんだよ。時間稼ぎのつもりなら無駄だ。いいから早く扉を開けろ。
しかし。
The researcher's words were interrupted by a gunshot. Watase had shot the ceiling to intimidate the man.
悠長に話している時間はないんだ。あまり手こずらせると次は当てる。
Watase ignored the looks of fear that had risen to the men's faces and spoke to Dojima and Hiyama.
堂島、檜山、こいつらの目を使って網膜認証を済ませてくれ。またごねたらそいつの目を。
Watase ordered Dojima and Hiyama in the most intimidating manner he could think of.
おう、それでも多分扉は開くだろうしな。ほら、お前らこっちに来い。
よせ、何をする。せめて AD を投与させてくれ。そうしなければ我々は。
時間稼ぎもいい加減にしろ。本当に撃たれたいのか。
Dojima and Hiyama restrained the struggling researchers and forced them to complete their retinal authentication.
やめろー。
Same time, the researcher let out that scream. The door to Subject N's room opened. That moment, a refreshing and soothing floral scent wafted through the air. Oh. It's as if they'd opened the doors to a flower bed. Oh. What? What they found on the other side was, of course, no flower bed. Oh. Holy shit. Watase was once again at a loss for words. What the fuck? Such a bizarre sight. Middle of that floral-scented room filled with tons of stuffed animals. There's a girl hanging from the ceiling. She was bound hand to foot like some sort of feral beast. Floral scent was being emitted by an aromatic air freshener lying in the corner of the room. Girl, intoxicated by that scent, stared off blankly into space. So that this wasn't... Whoa. As soon as Natsuhiko saw her, it hit him. She's the girl who died by the cargo lift. This girl was Subject N. What's with those restraints? Yuri was never put into anything like that, right? So why only this girl? Mysterious emotion welled up within him. It wasn't sympathy for Subject N. It was a vague yet overwhelming fear. Can't be. Tell me this girl really felt like he was approaching the unthinkable core at the heart of everything. The memory continued to play out before Natsuhiko without any heed to his feelings. Watase called out to the girl again.
Oi.
Girl looked at Watase in response. Watase felt his body temperature drop the moment he looked into her hollow eyes. Dull eyes that had lost all emotion. The fear he'd felt was as if he had gazed into a forbidden abyss.
これは一体何なんだ。
お前らこの子に何をした。
だんまりか。くそ。いいだろう。堂島、こいつらを見張っといてくれ。檜山は拘束を解くのを手伝ってくれ。
Fine time to have pity on a communicator. Yeah, yes, this is awful, but they're still coming from the group that thinks communicators are monsters. Nope. Shit. Dojima and Hiyama came back to their senses and sprung into action. Dojima pushed the researchers against the walls outside the room, then fixed the doors opening in ways that it wouldn't close again. Meantime, Watase and Hiyama tried releasing the girl from her restraints. It took some effort, but they succeeded in removing the girl's bindings.
大丈夫か。
Watase and Hiyama took Subject N out of her room. She showed no reaction at all. In fact, it was like she didn't even realize anyone was speaking to her. Was her mind broken? Don't tell me it was due to all the human experimentation they'd put her through. Tense rage filled Watase's heart. I feel like that's really possible. I feel like that's quite possible. That's scary possible. Under the circumstances, this was no way to treat such a frail girl.
おい、お前ら。この子は俺たちが連れて行く。この子のことが世に知れれば、お前たちは破滅だ。法の裁きを受けて、自分らの罪を思い知れ。
The researchers didn't respond. They were muttering something in a faint voice. Oh, she's already getting to them.
破滅か。お前たちのせいで何もかも。もうダメだ。AD がないから、私たちは。救出など何も知らないくせに。救出などと。
What's with these guys? Thing felt off to Watase. Researchers were acting weird.
おい、聞いてるのか。
Natsuhiko was never the monster that Watase encountered. Dojima walked over to the researchers with a gun in his hand.
N の恐ろしさも知らないバカどもが。
Oh wow, one of the researchers became enraged and lunged at Dojima. Oh. So the overflowing malice Watase that Natsuhiko broke was the Watase who's probably fallen under Subject N's spell. Dojima frantically tried to counterattack. The researcher grabbed his arm and tried to steal his gun.
やめろ、何をしてる。お前らこそ何が救出だ。正義気取りの犠牲者が。銃をよこせ。こいつを外に逃がすくらいなら今ここで。
よせ、危ない。
Just as Dojima shouted that, the sound of a gunshot rang out. Blood spouted out of the hole in the researcher's chest, then pitched forward and fell to the floor. Spurts of blood that scattered out of him stained Dojima's clothes. Everyone in the room stood rooted into place as if they were frozen. Eventually, the other researcher broke the silence with a shrill scream.
死んだ。殺した。人殺し。人殺し。
違う。今のは事故。
何がレスキュー隊だ。人を殺しておいて。エディグシの仇だ。お前を死ね。
やめろ。
Researcher sprung at Dojima and strangled him while he was still standing. Watase watched that scene, dumbfounded. What's going on? What's up with these guys? Why'd they change so suddenly? Wait, could the effects of the malice have already taken hold of them in this short of amount of time? Confused thoughts were interrupted by Dojima's pain cries.
Kasasagi! Yama!
Yama gasped and took out his gun. When he issued that threat, Researcher turned right around and towards Yama and lunged for him. Yama's body shuddered at that moment. Another gunshot echoed. A small hole had bored himself near the researcher's throat. The researcher tried to say something, but vomited up a small pool of blood before he could finish. With that, he collapsed onto the floor with a thud. Then looked up to the ceiling with hollow eyes and faintly muttered to himself. Noble goal. The researcher muttered those last incomprehensible words, then lost his strength. Emma was muttering to himself in shock.
俺が殺したのか。
落ち着け、檜山。まだ死んだと決まったわけじゃ。
Watase ran over to the researchers and performed CPR. Their life signs grew weaker with each passing moment. Being a certified first aid practitioner, Watase could tell right away that they were beyond help.
ダメだ。二人とももう。
Yeah, we're fucked. Watase muttered this as his shoulders slumped.
そんな。どうしてこんなことに。
We opened Pandora's box. Yama sounded like he was on the verge of tears. Watase also felt on the verge of collapse from his guilt, but then we opened Pandora's box and unleashed malice.
悔やむなお前ら。今は後悔する時じゃない。まだ任務は続いているんだ。
They couldn't stay here. The WX particle entry levels in Area N were probably rising at that very moment, but they didn't have any time. If they rise above 4,000, well, they're still here with Subject N. They're next. Watase looked to Subject N as he thought that. Hello! And was shocked to discover her looking at the researchers' bodies with a faint smile on her face. That could mean one of many things. Either she's glad they're dead, because they mistreated her horribly, or she's glad they're dead because she broke mentally and wants to be glad that they suffered. That one fell apart on me. Then again, those could both coincide. And she really hated those researchers that much.
いや、それよりこの子を連れて早く脱出しよう。それと、そう、爆弾を仕掛けるのを忘れるな。
Three of them planted the tetral bomb in Subject N's room, then took her with them and left. They carried the blood-stained bodies of the researchers to the elevator to perform the retinal authentication. I was worried that the retina of someone half dead wouldn't work, but the elevator opened without any issues.
この二人を上に連れて行くか。
よそう。二人とももう助からない。
So good luck getting back down. Watase nodded with depression in his heart. His supposedly foolproof plan had already begun to fall completely apart. Natsuhiko watched the memory with bated breath. Well, what happened after this? At any rate, he'd confirmed that the bomb had indeed been set. It was located in Subject N's room in Area 0, but how the fuck do we get down there now? It was set to go off at 1817. There were only 2 hours left in real time until then. Calm down. The bomb's a big problem, true, but it shouldn't be much longer until I see when Watase and I encountered each other. When we did, Watase was far more brutal than he was at this point. Is the reason for that hidden in the memories after this? Natsuhiko was beginning to have a sneaking suspicion regarding the cause. He moved on to the next memory, attempting to turn that suspicion into a certainty. That's how Dojima and Hyama wound up dead, as well as the other researchers upstairs. And that's how that would also explain Ukita kind of turning on Watase and claiming that Watase came through and was a bit aggressive with him, because he probably was. Prokin's alarm went off as soon as they made it back up to Area N. Reading was at 4,182 millisievert, past the first safety standard. Shit, we spent too much time down below. Watase grabbed Subject N by the hand and tried to run. At that moment, he felt like something had pierced his mind. Uh-oh. A second later, various scenes flashed through his brain. All the memories from the day Ukita had told him the truth behind the Great Rokame City arson at that very moment appeared before him. Then disappeared. What? What was that? A strange emotion welled up from the bottom of his heart at the same time. Emotion that was like a mix of impatience, discomfort, and rage. Watase unconsciously looked at Subject N. Get the step in, Watase. He did. She looked back at him. Oh. And let out a laugh like the cry of a strange bird. Intense shivers rained down Watase's spine. Shivers only got worse as he continued to look at Subject N. What is this emotion? He looked at Dojima and Hyama, found both of them glaring at Subject N with a grimace on their faces. It was as if the clear discomfort inside of them was oozing out. Ah yes, glaring. Discomfort on their faces. Watase spoke up to shake off the shivers.
行くぞ。浮田さんと合流しなきゃいかん。
Dojima replied in a faint voice. The group then left Area N with Subject N in tow. A piercing siren screeched as soon as they exited the room.
ただいま、ケース N が発生しました。緊急事態につき、セキュリティを封鎖モードに移行。施設内の全ゲートを閉鎖、ロックする。
Just as Ukita had said, a case N had been declared because they'd taken Subject N out of Area N. The group opened the closed security gates with the cards they'd stolen from the high-ranked researchers and headed for the surveillance room. Ukita shouted as soon as they made it back.
遅かったじゃないか。3人ともなんともないか。
あ、とりあえず大丈夫そうだが。
He'd managed to conceal the chills he'd been feeling earlier for the time being.
本当か?
Ukita looked at Watase with suspicion. His gaze really rubbed Watase the wrong way. There it is.
大丈夫だと言っているだろう。それより
Anger is multiplying
大
slowly.
変だ浮田さん。ゼロエリアには被験体が1人しかいなかった。
何?
Y2 の姿が見当たらないんだ。どこにいるかわかるか？
では第5エリアにいるのかもしれないな。僕の調べによれば第5エリア外周と地下1階に隠し部屋のようなものがある。有事の際の避難場所のようだ。あるいはここにいるのかも。
Ukita suddenly stopped as a look of confused realization crossed his face.
そういえばあの幹部研究員たちはどうしたのかね。
Three comrades couldn't answer. Ukita furrowed his eyebrows and scanned all of them. His face then froze when he caught sight of the spurt of blood that had stained Dojima's uniform.
おい君たち、ゼロエリアで何をした？あの幹部研究員2名をどうしたんだ？
Dojima and Hyama wrung out their voices and answered Ukita's shouts.
殺してしまった。2人とも被験体 N の部屋で。
You could have at least opened with, "They attacked us and we killed them."
なんだって？
Ukita glared at Watase in shock.
隊長さん、話が違うじゃないか。人的被害は出さないんじゃなかったのか。
いや、 あれは事故だったんだ。事故で2人とも死んだというのかね。
Kida, full with indignation, continued to press Watase.
正直に言ってくれ隊長さん。君らもしかして意図的にあの2人を殺したんじゃないのか。
They attacked us. Say it with me, Watase. Not that I think that excuses anything, that's what Watase should be leading with. We did kidnap them and hold them hostage, and force them to release a patient against their will, who they were deathly afraid of.
待て、落ち着け浮田さん。誰も傷つけないという話だったじゃないか。騙していたのか。もしそうだというなら、僕は君たちを。
Must what? Kida reached out for the pistol in Watase's hands. Wow, you're extra vulnerable. He's going to steal it. Watase's body immediately sprung into action the exact moment he had that thought. Watase raised the pistol and swung it down on the back of Ukida's head. Oh, holy shit. That escalated quickly. Kida lost consciousness and collapsed to the floor. Watase came back to his senses and spoke up.
すまない、浮田さん。
And again, is Ukita that pacifist that he reacted so aggressively to the thought of us having killed someone? That's the part of him that got multiplied?
俺たちはもう引き返すことができないんだ。
None of them had wished for things to turn out this way, but they did. But what was done was done. Dojima called out in a worn-out voice.
どうするんだ笠崎。こんなことになっちまって。
浮田さんが目覚める前に脱出の手はずを整えよう。
Watase stole Ukita's security card, so the latter couldn't move on his own. Yep, that's why he did that. Since there was another card in his pocket for some reason, Watase took that too.
お前たちは機材を地下1階に運んでおいてくれ。
被験体 Y2 はどうするんですか。
Subject Y2. She was most likely a young woman, judging from how her room had looked. There's no way they could leave her behind. Hi, Subject N.
俺がその子を探しに行く。
バカな、一人でか。
行くしかないだろう。お前たちは後を頼む。20分待って戻らなかったら俺を置いていけ。
Watase said that and rushed out of the surveillance room. He felt a great discomposure in his heart. Thought as he kept on running. Subject Y2 has to be in Area 5. If I can just find her, then the plan will succeed. There have been some casualties. They're the bastards who treated Subject N so horribly. Besides, that wasn't their only sin. They're also the bastards who indirectly caused the fire 16 years ago. That was... right, that was retribution. Yeah, just rationalize it in our own heads. Those bastards deserve to die. How very rational. Once they thought that in an attempt to justify his and his comrades' actions. Also, you don't consider communicators human beings, or communicators humans, Watase. Another thought crossed his mind unexpectedly. Deserve to die. Might be true, but were they the only ones responsible for causing the fire 16 years ago? Uh-oh. They're not the ones who directly caused it, right? Huh? What the hell was I just thinking? The ones who directly caused it? His mind was torn up by chaos and he couldn't stop his thoughts. Even Watase himself didn't really know what he'd been thinking. He arrived at B1 of Area 5's outer ring as the chaos continued to reign in his heart. Watase had nigh superhuman stamina, yet he was out of breath. His heart was pounding harder than normal and he couldn't catch his breath at all. Where's Subject Y2? Blindly searched around and soon spotted a strange object. Something that appeared to be a keypad was built into one of the hallway's walls. Is this the emergency shelter that Mr. Ukita was talking about? Watase ran over to it and pounded on the wall. Oh, this is where he ADs Yuri. Please be in here. It wasn't long before the wall opened and a door appeared. A girl came out from the door. Hi, Yuri. She looked confused the moment she saw Watase. Watase spoke to her in the calmest voice he could muster.
ようやく見つけた。君は このラボの関係者だな。
あなたは。
レスキュー隊だ。君たちを救助に来た。
Once I said that, the girl's face froze.
あなたは Q の。
Watase was shocked to hear that. His heart trembled like crazy as his skin broke out in goosebumps. He'd only just met her, so the only way the girl could have known what he really was.
おい、まさか BC で読んだのか、俺の心。
An intense, unpleasant feeling welled up in his heart. Never imagined he'd feel this uncomfortable about having his mind read. The girl glared at Watase. She had the face of an innocent girl, but just looking at it irritated Watase for some reason.
まあいい。一緒に来てもらおうか。
Watase said that and grabbed the girl by the arm.
暴れないでくれ。おとなしくすれば手荒なことはしない。
However, the girl didn't stop struggling even after Watase shouted that. It won't be good if she looks into my mind again. If she finds out that we killed 2 men, we won't be able to keep her in line. It's at that moment that Watase remembered the drug in his pocket. He had 2 ampules of AD that had been supplied to him by members of LABO. That's right, she shouldn't be able to use BC if I administer this to her. Watase quickly took an AD out of his pocket and injected it into the back of the girl's neck. The girl screamed. She then looked like she was concentrating hard on something, but soon stopped and gasped. She really had been trying to use BC. Watase chose that moment to cut in.
BC を封じる薬を打たせてもらった。君の能力はもう使えない。
The girl's face filled with despair, and she tried to shake off Watase's grip. Watase put her into a sleeper hold so she couldn't get away. The girl quickly lost consciousness. Her body went limp. It hadn't hurt Watase's heart at all to do that. Local terrorist chokes out young girls. More at 10. It was better to knock her unconscious than to let her keep struggling. After a group of Dojima and Hyama. Watase thought that as he picked the girl up and started walking off. Okay, then that takes care of all of our problems. We've successfully secured the test subjects. All that's left is to escape LABO and our mission will be totally complete. Dojima and Hyama are gonna be dead, aren't they? When he thought that, a most peculiar thought entered his mind. Mission will be totally complete, huh? Everything will end happily ever after once we successfully get the test subjects out of here. Thought echoed in Watase's brain like an auditory hallucination. It was like the voice of a totally different person. Voice echoed in Watase's head again once he let out the hot, hollow sound of confusion. Hey, you forgot already. LABO researchers weren't the bastards responsible for causing the Great Arson 16 years ago. It was the communicators, remember? Watase was shocked at his own thoughts. The repulsive thoughts kept coming one after another and polluted Watase's mind. The incident 16 years ago was Subject A's fault. Now aren't the very same test subject that I'm trying to save responsible for my family's deaths? Aren't they both mind-corrupting monsters just like Subject A? Those high-ranked researchers changed so drastically in the blink of an eye because of one of them. So what is it that I want to do to those 2?
決まってる。俺はこの子たちを連れ出しに来たんだ。
Watase raised his voice as if he were trying to oppose his own thoughts.
たとえ家族の仇であろうと、そのために俺はここまで。
No, try listening to what your mind is telling you. Realistically, what is Q gonna do once they get test subjects out of LABO? What is going to happen to the test subjects once they are out of LABO? That question for me needs answered before I can even begin to consider the notion of Q having remotely good intentions for communicators. I suppose the more we're learning, the less clear-cut it actually is. Like, that's a really inhumane way to keep somebody in a cell. Just hanging from the fucking ceiling. That's really fucked up. It's weird. One, you're being kept in a facility way underground with countless levels of protection to keep you in. Keep you from getting out. This is seen as necessary to keep people with your powers from getting out. If you develop certain powers, they'll genuinely consider you a monster. And yet... Say, we still don't know what exactly, experiment-wise, they did to Subject N, but... to some degree, they did try to build their little prison into something comfortable. I'm just saying this as means that both sides have mitigating factors to their more awful natures. Like, we definitely do not know Subject N's full story and the full extent of her powers yet. So there's still a chance that LABO really was just conducting innocent experiments and she just got worse and they felt they had to take drastic, unethical measures to keep her secure. That possibility is non-zero. There is also the possibility that they absolutely caused this state of her. They are responsible for leaving her in this state and leaving her utterly mistreating her horribly and turning her into this, where she's desperate for revenge. That is a higher percentage. But the two distinct possibilities do exist. With Q, we have... we have their initial assessment, where they very clearly discuss communicators not being human, and they had very clearly left the implication out there that communicator casualties are okay because they're not human. They specified human casualties. At the same time, there's a very distinct desire to get the test subjects out of LABO. That seems legitimate. It is to serve their own purposes, and what happens to the test subjects beyond that is completely unknown. Like, they could just end up somewhere else to be under sedation. Or lobotomized, or worse, I don't know. It's unclear what their intentions are with the test subjects once they're out of LABO, other than serving the goals of Q. Yeah, there's I guess in Q's case, there's less a mitigating factor and more just muddy waters as far as what their actual intentions are. Like, these terrorists, Dojima, Hiyama, and Watase, are genuinely taken aback by the conditions that Subject N was kept in. As is correct. That's a very normal reaction. And yet they're also a member of an organization that doesn't consider communicators to be human. Which... There's a certain hypocrisy that's hard to get over there. Like, you may not consider yourself racist, but if you associate with people who are, willingly, and don't hold them accountable for their shitty beliefs. Neutrality is passive acceptance of shitty beliefs. That's my thought. Okay, well, shit, this was a eventful episode. And there's more to come. We still yet to see the complete breakdown of Watase. Can Watase be redeemed by foregoing his Q days? If he legitimately comes to respect Natsuhiko after getting his memories back, like, maybe there's hope. He's still an accessory to murder, a terrorist, in many degrees. So he ain't going back to normal life after this. But Chance's character could come around and be saved. I'm really curious how they're gonna handle the presentation of Subject N as the villain. This is going to be interesting to see. I say that with some trepidation, given the condition of the poor girl. Welcome to the Tip Corner, where we read about various factoids that we learned about during an episode. Let's start with Q-style martial arts, because that seems remarkably silly. A close combat style taught only to Q members, based on Japanese Kempo and mixed with wrestling, Kosen Judo, and Karate. It's a martial art focused on actual combat. Similar to the 9th National Police Agency's Taiho Jutsu, the Japanese Self-Defense Force's Kakudo Jutsu. Q doesn't mind resorting to terrorists, but it could also be said that to be a martial arts style specialized for counter-terrorists. Counter-terrorists. Okay. After Watase joined Q, he studied and trained in this style of martial arts with a former JSDF member he connected with. Interesting factoid. Alright, NZ75. Automatic pistols that Watase, Dojimba, and Hyama took into LABO as provided by Q. Loading capacity is 15+1. The NZ75 is produced by the Chinese manufacturer Norinco, copied off the original Czech CZ75. The CZ75 is highly valued for its ergonomically designed grip and high precision. It's even said to be the best gun in the world at the time of its manufacture in 1975. However, to achieve its level of high precision, each gun had to be machined out of steel individually, and furthermore, the state-managed Czech arms factory was unable to get foreign patents, and thus CZ75 clones and knockoffs appeared in international markets in large quantities. High precision. Interesting. Oh, so the NZ75 is a cheap knockoff. Okay. Oh. We have 3 of these floating around LABO. One of them wound up by Subject N. It's a corpse who eventually vanished. One of them wound up by Natsuhiko. That was Watase's. Where did the 3rd gun go? I don't remember. It's with one of the dead. Either Dojima or Hyama. Possibly. I suppose we'll see if we see the fate of Dojima and Hyama. It's interesting to keep track of how these facts fall into place. gonna say now business has definitely picked up. As much as I criticized Yuri's backstory for being slow, it was very much material that needed to be in there. And I apologize for doubting you. Sorry, Yuri. And now we're getting into it. Now we're getting into it. Oh man. And we're not even back to the prison yet, just hearing the truth of what's gone on from Watase's perspective. That's interesting as hell. It feels like it fits. Everything else we've seen. We've seen what Natsuhiko manipulated in Watase's memory. We've seen bits and pieces from multiple perspectives. And now, everything's just kind of fit, just kind of slotting into place. Really, really well. And I really like it. That note, until next time, until then.